Multiple storms will be coming to the United States around and just after Christmas, and these will bring some problems, including the potential for some severe weather, heavy rainfall that could lead to flooding, and as well as snowfall. And then as we go later into December, a heat wave will continue to build, but we think we are going to see a huge Arctic blast as we go into early to mid-January that could really unleash winter. So in today's forecast, we're going to break down exactly what you need to know about the weather that'll be impacting the United States for the rest of 2024, and we'll begin with what's happening across the country this morning, and things are relatively quiet for most of the country. The biggest stories today being that we have a low pressure system that has just moved off to the east of New England. This actually did end up dumping several inches of snow in southeastern New England last night. Overall, the only thing that's left is a little bit of lake effect snow across several different lakes, anywhere from Lake Michigan back into Lake Ontario, but overall it's going to be pretty minimal accumulation today. Behind this is a huge cold air mass, which is going to cool down the entire East Coast over the next couple of days. If you're not already feeling it, you will feel it at some point over the next 48 hours, especially back down in areas like Florida that are seeing that really big cool down compared to what we've been dealing with the last couple of weeks. It's been mostly in the 70s, and now it's dipping into the 50s and 60s for high temperatures. Back along the West Coast, that is where we're dealing with atmospheric river events that are going to continue to lead to flooding and as well as snowfall, and we're going to break down this more in detail here in just a few minutes, because a lot of the storms that we're going to be dealing with east of the Rocky Mountains are actually going to be coming from these atmospheric river events that are occurring in the Pacific Ocean. So the weather over the next 7 to 14 days is going to revolve a lot around the atmospheric rivers that are happening across the west coast of the United States. So let's talk more about these big storms that'll be coming to the United States over the next 7 to 10 days, beginning with what's happening with our jet stream aloft. This right here is a very impressive and strong jet stream just to the west of California. This is our Pacific jet stream. Elsewhere in the United States, we don't really have anything noticeable other than this large trough, but that's moving away from the country. We got a little small shortwave trough here over in the Pacific Northwest, but again, not really anything too big of a deal. As we go into Monday into Tuesday, that actually shortwave will be moving into areas like the Midwest, and we are going to get a little bit of snow out of that, perhaps even a winter storm as we go into Monday across the Midwest and the Great Lakes region, in addition to some rain that'll be falling from Texas back into the Ohio Valley. We'll talk more about that here in a moment. But really what's going to set up our weather pattern around and just after Christmas is going to be the Pacific jet stream, because we are going to see storms ejecting eventually over the Rocky Mountains as we get closer to Christmas. So this is eventually by the 24th and 25th. And notice how we have a couple of troughs here that are going to be moving across the United States. And this is what's going to start to, I think, ramp up the potential for at least the return of a little bit of severe weather as we get closer and just after Christmas. So that'll be definitely something to watch for. And then as we go later into the month, so eventually by the 27th and 28th, I think we are going to start to see a few more of these storms that are a little bit larger in size, and these will be the ones that could produce maybe some localized severe weather outbreaks. And then eventually by around the new year, that is when I think we're going to start to see maybe 1 or 2 large storms, and then eventually I think we are going to have a huge Arctic blast around the first week or two of January, as all of this is going to basically be building lots of warm air for much of the United States, because we're not going to really have any Arctic blasts over the next couple of weeks, because the jet stream is going to be lifted so far off to the north, and the troughs that we're going to be seeing are coming out of the Pacific and not out of Canada, which is where a lot of the cold air resides. And this is what I'm talking about when I say it's going to be pretty warm here over the next couple of weeks. We are going to have a full-blown heat wave here across the United States and Canada around and just after Christmas, well above average temperatures for most of the United States throughout the next several days, and this will continue and really ramp up around the new year. But after the new year hits, that is when things I think are going to start to mix up a little bit, and this could allow for a couple things, one of which being maybe a big storm that produces a lot of snow and severe weather. But I think the biggest thing and the biggest story is that we are going to see some sort of big Arctic blast as we go into the first week or two of January, and you can see that here. Again, this is obviously still well over 10 days out from now, so the forecast accuracy here is going to be very minimal, but this gives you an idea that all this warm air that's building up is going to eventually lead to a collapse, and that's going to be an Arctic blast of some nature as we go into the first couple of weeks of January. Now let's talk more into detail about what these storms will exactly be doing in the United States, beginning with what's happening over the next couple of days through the weekend. Really not much happening unless you're back over in the Pacific Northwest. There will be heavy rainfall and snow from Northern California back into Washington. As we go into Monday, that atmospheric river dies out. We'll be watching an Alberta Clipper moving across the Midwest. The question really remains, when will the snow start to ramp up? I think it's going to ramp up Monday morning, and I think it's going to be pretty heavy, especially in northern parts of Michigan during the daytime on Monday. So I do think there's a potential here that this does turn into at least some sort of winter storm back over in Michigan. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel because there could be some changes to the details here, but it looks like this is going to be mostly all day Monday for Michigan, and parts of Wisconsin and maybe northern Illinois will get a little bit of snowfall. As we go into Tuesday morning, a couple of things are going to be happening, first of which snow will be falling in the Northeast on Christmas Eve. So good news if you're looking forward to a white Christmas. Back over along the West Coast, we are going to have the potential for some flooding rainfall in areas like Northern California and Oregon, as rain is really going to be dumping there, and then also some scattered showers across areas in the central and southern plains and the southeast on Christmas Eve. So if you have any travel plans, don't be surprised if you're driving through some rain. As we go into Christmas Eve night and eventually into Christmas Day, that is when we're going to likely have some sort of storm system trying to develop here across the Midwest and the southern plains. Right now, the GFS model does not have this as much, but we might end up seeing at least some rain out of this, and perhaps even the potential for some snow and maybe a mixture of that back over in the Midwest. And then back over in the Rockies, there will be some snow falling there on Christmas Day. And then eventually, as we go into Thursday, that is when we're going to have another storm ejecting over the Rocky Mountains. This would have a better shot at producing at least some isolated severe weather. On the flip side, there will be some snowfall across the Pacific Northwest and more rain along the west coast of the United States. Some showers are going to be possible in the southeast. Again, nothing really that impactful there, though. As we go eventually into Friday and Saturday, things do become a bit more uncertain. However, I do think one of these two storms will produce at least a slight risk of severe weather, perhaps some damaging winds and maybe an isolated tornado threat here in parts of the southern plains and maybe even as far north as southern Missouri. And then eventually, as we go into Sunday into Monday, again, things continue to become more uncertain, but it looks like it's going to be a pretty active weather pattern around the new year across the east coast of the United States. So overall, severe weather possible. Definitely doesn't look like any outbreaks yet, but I do think that could change as we get closer, as details do become a little bit more certain. But one thing that is more certain right now is that we're going to be seeing some snowfall from areas like Wisconsin back into Michigan as we go into Monday into Tuesday. Most areas will only be picking up a few inches of snow. There could be a few spots in northern Michigan around or just over a foot of snow, and then the Northeast will be dealing with several inches of snow as we go into Christmas Eve. So definitely a nice little thing to look forward to if you're looking forward to a white Christmas this year. In terms of total rainfall accumulation through Christmas Day, most of it will be across the Mississippi River. There will likely be a few localized spots here in northeast Texas back through Arkansas that actually pick up a few inches of rain, and then back along the west coast in northern California through Oregon, that is where several inches of rainfall will be falling, anywhere from 1 to even upwards of 5 inches of rain in some spots. And then eventually, as we get closer to the new year, so this is the rainfall accumulation all the way through the new year, so right through the 31st, we're going to be dealing with more than likely a lot of rain across the Ohio Valley and as well as back through the Midwest, several areas between 1 to 3 inches of rain. And then look up here in Oregon and Washington, upwards of 5 to 10 inches of rain, and some spots could easily be over a foot of rain when those atmospheric rivers are all said and done. As a quick recap, the temperatures across the United States are going to be on the rise. Christmas Day right now looking to be above average for most of the country, only exception being the West Coast. And then as we go closer to the new year, the potential for record-breaking high temperatures will return, especially across the Midwest and as well as the Ohio Valley. So the actual temperatures on Christmas Eve for high temperatures right now in the 60s and 70s, and even some 80s across the southern tier of the United States, including Texas, 30s and 40s for high temperatures in the Midwest and the Ohio Valley. Christmas Day high temperatures could be as high as 85 to 86 degrees in South Texas, and then elsewhere 50s and even maybe some 60s as far north as areas like Arkansas and maybe even southwest Kansas, back over in Indiana as well, in the low to mid 50s. A pretty mild Christmas is ahead here across much of the United States. And then as we get closer to the new year, this is by Saturday, look at this, low to mid 60s across much of Ohio and even back into parts of Illinois and Indiana. Warm weather is definitely coming. And also, this is the Climate Prediction Center outlook for temperatures between December 26th to 30th. More than likely going to see record-breaking temperatures in parts of the Midwest and the Ohio Valley. Here's the good news, though. If you're looking forward to colder weather, they are already indicating that below average temperatures are likely between January 4th to January 17th. We're going to be breaking down this more in detail in our next video, so make sure you're subscribed to the channel and also like the video.